YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back on a very busy day in the NFL. The franchise tag deadline has passed, 9 tags given out. I'm here to grade all of them. Right here, we'll have the same thing going during free agency, grading all the signings. We got to get into those predictions still this week as well. All kinds of content here. Make sure you follow us on our Twitter for live, instant news, takes, predictions, and more. At GoatHouse NFL, links pinned in the comments. Help us get to 100K here on YouTube. Would be much appreciated. Let's go on to the tag, starting with T. Higgins, which was the first one. So that'll pay him $21.8 million. So something to keep in mind. A lot of you probably know this already, but with the tag, the price, so $21.8 million, that is the cap hit for this year. If you were to sign T. Higgins, for an example, on a long-term contract that averages $21.8 million per year, it's not necessarily $21.8 million cap hit each year. You can backload it, structure it differently. So that maybe that's the downside of the tag. Like, you have no choice. That is the full cap hit. You can't move that money. You can't do anything with it, unless you sign him to an extension, remove that tag, or trade him. But so that's something to keep in mind for all of these. But overall, this is good. I gave the Bengals an A for this because with the cap increasing and T. Higgins being a great young player that's getting better, is very important to them. We saw him come up big in games last year, even with Joe Burrow out. Big piece of that offense. So I think he's worth that $21.8 million, especially with, again, the cap increasing. So, and the Bengals actually, believe it or not, for a talented team, they have a bit of cap space. Of course, they want to use some of that cap space. There's not a ton that needs to be used on their own player in terms of 2024 cap space. That's more the future. Sure, you would want something to roll over, but they can afford this. And if they want to some people believe they'll trade him. That's good as well because, maybe if you're a Bengals fan, you'd rather have T. Higgins, but you're not letting him go to free agency and getting a future third-round compensatory pick. You're getting more than value for that, for him, and you're getting it right now. So that's why, I see only positives here with this one. If he's stuck on the tag, they have the money to afford the $21.8 million, and you still have T. Higgins, which is great. If you extend him, then that's good. You can kind of spread out those cap hits. You have T. Higgins; he's a good player. If you trade him, you're getting something valuable for him. You're getting rid of that $21.8 million. You're getting more value than what you would have got if you let him walk in free agency. So there really isn't too many negatives here. So that's where I'm at with the A grade for the Bengals in T. Higgins. We're grading the teams with these grades. Next, we got L'Jarius Sneed, which a little bit of a tricky one for the Chiefs. 1 year, $19.8 million. I gave it a B+, and this is kind of dependent on them trading him almost. Really not continuing on with that $19.8 million cap hit. Very good corner. Very good corner. I've said it for a long time. I wouldn't pay corners and it's like that much money unless, maybe they're prime Jalen Ramsey, make an exception for, but that's kind of the Chiefs way too. It's a championship formula. There's a lot of it's coaching when it comes to the secondary. Where you have to spend money is the defensive line. The pass rush, whether it's off the edge mainly and in the interior. Everything else, you got to spend a little bit of money, but a lot of it's coaching. L'Jarius Sneed is a really good corner. He's worth a lot of money, but it's just not the amount of money that, and that's what the Chiefs do. They draft new guys. They don't spend a lot of money there. But so why this is a tricky one to grade, again, it's dependent on a lot of things here. If the Chiefs are stuck with Sneed on the tag at $19.8 million, this is not good. This is not good because that is a massive cap hit. It's not kind of the championship formula, how much you want to spend in 1 year, again, because the cap hits that entire $19.8 million. It will limit the Chiefs from doing anything else because they're trying to sign Chris Jones right now. My phone's going off like crazy. I always got to make sure nothing else happened here. We're good. And they're focusing on signing Chris Jones, right? So if they're stuck with 19, this just can't happen. They can't be stuck at $19.8 million in 1 year for a corner for L'Jarius, even though he's a great one, L'Jarius Sneed. So this backfires completely if they're stuck in any way like that. I'm pretty confident with them trading him, and if not, then extending him and having it a cheaper cap hit, than that. Chiefs are smart enough to not, get hit, by that amount from a cornerback. Obviously, they're good at drafting the next guy. So Yeah, the only reason this, because I love the Chiefs, like how they go about that, and like how they go about like where they spend money, how smart they are, how good they are drafting the next man up. Love the Chiefs. Also love the Chiefs where, hey, we're not just gonna let, even though we don't want to pay him, we're not just gonna let him walk and get the free agency. We're gonna get something valuable because he's on the rise corner. So I love all that. So that makes me want to put it on in an A. But like we talked about T. Higgins, what are the negatives? Really none for that. If they are stuck with Sneed on this tag, which is 19.8 million cap hit, it kind of backfires a little bit, but I mean, you do have a great corner that helped you win a Super Bowl, back on for one more year. So it's not like it's the end of the world or anything, but they can't really have that. But it seems if there was a guy that was like, we talked about T. Higgins getting tagged and traded. We're going to talk about Brian Burns, a possibility. But if there's one that feels like the most likely, it'd probably be Sneed. So a lot of us are pretty confident they do get the job done. They get value. They get picks back, and they shed that 19.8 million. Chiefs know what they're doing. Next, Justin Madubuike is a tricky one as well. For the Ravens, I'm going to give it a B. I mean, the positive here is, the positive with all these is you don't let him get the free agency, right? But the positive here is, he had a breakout year kind of out of nowhere. He was a rising player, like pretty good before that. But, I mean, this was a monstrous season. No one was really predicting that. So you get him back as of right now, and they're trying to work out a long-term deal, and they very well could do that. But if it's a 1-year deal, like you kind of get a trial, like see if he can do it again. So that's kind of the positive here, and you don't let him hit free agency. And he's probably worth that 22.1. I mean, what defensive tackles get paid, and the cap increasing. So those are good things. So I guess the negative on getting him a long-term deal around this range was, what if that was a 1-year wonder? I doubt he was a 1-year wonder, but again, Mike McDonald's gone as well. But it's a lot, they're going to run a lot of the same things, but that's kind of besides the point on a long-term deal. So, but that's kind of the positive on if you do keep him on the tag. But why this is a B is it's tricky because you do pretty much have to get him on an extension. You can't really afford the Ravens to have that 22.1 full cap charge on 1 year. You're not going to be able to do anything else in free agency. You might be able to do some little things here and there. You might have to do other things you don't want to do to clear more money so you can actually do things. So they can't really have this happen because it's going to be a very short, small, quiet free agency or off season if they keep him on this tag. And if they extend him, that's great, but there's a little risk. We talked about it with that. So, really, the way you gotta look at it is like they're gonna get their guy back here. That's kind of the good thing, and that's why we kind of kept it in the B range. But it's not like the best situation to be in. Obviously, the Ravens rather have him than not. Again, that's why the B is a good grade. It's like I'm not putting it a C or D, but it's not an ideal situation because there's negatives kind of on both sides. Keep him the tag, like not major negatives, but keeping him on the tag and extending him. And we are grading the tag right now too. So, I'm going to give that one a B. So it's a tough situation for the Ravens, but what wasn't tough was making sure he didn't get the free agency, and they did do that. For Brian Burns, for the Panthers, I'm going to give them an A-. That's a $24 million. That's a lot of money, but it's a pass rusher premium position. That's what they're getting paid. They're getting paid north of that. Brian Burns is worth $24 million. He has a lot of upside. He's played better than what the sack stats may show, and I thought he's got a pretty good amount of sacks over the last several years. Maybe last year's a little bit underwhelming, I suppose, but he makes more of an impact than that. He's a really good player with his best football ahead of him, so I do think he's worth $24 million. He's a really good player. You're either going to have him on the 1 year $24 million, or you're going to trade him. They're not talking extension anymore at Brian Burns. So that's interesting. So they either want to keep him on the tag for 1 more year, or they're going to trade him. But the reason for the A-, again, why it's in the A range is it's a really good player. They're not just letting him walk. He's worth the $24 million. And if you do keep him on the tag, and the Panthers have some spending money but if they keep him on the tag, that's like, all right, maybe they want more production to see where he's actually worth, because it's been reported today that they're not working on an extension. Maybe they want to keep him on the 1 year to see what he's actually worth. That kind of makes sense as well. So all those good reasons is why it is in the A range. Why did I tack on that minus next to the A, maybe compared to like a T. Higgins where there really wasn't any negatives? Well, for the Panthers, if they do keep him on the tag, they are a little limited. They're starting to make some cuts. They can make some more moves. They can restructure Taylor Moton's deal, clear a little bit more space. So they would be able to do a little bit in free agency still, even if they kept him on the $24 million tag, which is a lot, going to be a $24 million cap hit. But they wouldn't be able to do what they really need to do, because a lot of holes on that team. They got to get Frankie Lavu back. They got to make other moves. You got to get receivers. They don't have a first-round draft pick either, so you got to do some damage in free agency. So keeping them on that tag, so the more I'm talking, it's like, yeah, you can't really keep him on that tag. So kind of A-, B+ range for Brian Burns, but it's a really good player that's worth the $24 million, and you potentially could trade him, get the first-round pick back. It's not going to be as high as what it would have been if you had that Bears pick, but and you might be able to get more. If it's not a first-round pick, it'd be like a second, a lot more. So I'd actually look out for a tag and trade as a possibility. If they end up stuck on the tag, maybe we bump this down to a B+ range, a similar situation as Madubuike, because not quite, but because maybe it hurts the rest of your free agency a little bit, not as much as the Ravens on theirs. But really good player. I think he's worth that. We'll see if they trade him and get a lot of picks for him. I mean, I like Brian Burns a lot. I probably like him more than the next guy. So if I'm the GM of the Panthers, I'm not closing those extension talks. We're not in that room though. Like, what if he's just being ridiculous? What if Burns is like, yeah, I'm going to need 27 million per year. And it's like, all right, we're not going to talk anymore. We're not going to do the extension talks anymore, so maybe that's what's happening, but I'd like to extend him and shuffle around that money. If it's around that 24 million range, I'm good with that. So maybe there's a little bit of gamble, but there's always gamble. So we'll see what happens there. It could get really interesting. Definitely watch out for him. We talked about Sneed. We talked about Higgins. We talked about Burns. I put it Sneed, Burns, Higgins in terms of likely to be traded off the tag. Next, Michael Pittman Jr. Felt like there was a deal going to get reached. They were really working to the deadline that the Colts were going to reach a deal with Michael Pittman Jr. It did not happen. They tag him. So that kind of tells us, like, they're probably going to get a deal done, right? They're probably going to get one done. We'll see. We're grading the tag. I'm going to give it an A. Don't let him get the free agency. He's still young, still really, really solid. Maybe getting better, because at one point it's like, all right, he's a contested catch, possession receiver, doing a lot more than that these days. Underneath stuff, like over the middle of the field in traffic, after the catch. Hasn't had the best of quarterbacks. You have an Anthony Richardson, who you hope is going to be a rising star once he gets going, and you don't want to stunt his growth by taking away Michael Pittman. Then you factor in $21.8 million. He's worth that if he's stuck on the tag. The Colts have a lot of spending money. They could afford that on a one-year cap hit. I mean, maybe the Colts finally do something in free agency, but every year it feels like they have a ton of cap space. They don't really spend it. They kind of save it, roll it over for their own guys. So, I hope they do something finally, but they have a lot of space where it's not really going to go towards a whole lot probably. So it's not like they're taking a massive hit with this. Well, maybe they are. Maybe because Ballard's extra careful, and now he doesn't have asthma. I'm pretty confident they're going to extend him, and it won't be a $21.8 million cap hit. So we'll go with that. Really good receiver. Again, worth that range. It's like just like T. Higgins. It's like T. Higgins has that trade factor with him, but in terms of there's really no negatives. Like, yeah, it's a $21.8 million cap. But like if the Colts had shit cap space, then it would be a negative. But I like this as an A. I think it was a pretty simple one. I would watch out for them to reach. If I had to order these two on who's most likely to get extended, I'd probably put Michael Pittman or Josh Allen, who we're going to talk about at the top. Probably, and there's other guys too, but who's next? We got Jaylon Johnson next. This is kind of going back to L'Jarius Sneed, how I've been for years and years. I've been a believer in not paying corners an insane amount of money. I played the position. I think it's the second hardest position to play. It doesn't really change where you should value it. I think a lot of it is coaching. I think Eberflus, taking over that defense this year and getting more talent on it. But him actually calling that defense kind of proved the point. Like, coaching on defense is important as anything. Edge talent is right there with it. It seems like different corners at the top every year too. You see what the Chiefs been doing. They draft them rather than pay them. So I'm not a huge fan of having a large cap hit on a corner. The difference between this Jaylon Johnson and L'Jarius Sneed tag is the Chiefs agree. They don't want to pay $19.8 million for a corner. They tagged him just to trade him to get extra value out of him. Now, if they are stuck on the tag with L'Jarius Sneed, then we drop that grade down. If they trade him for pretty damn good value, or extend him for team friendly deal, like that actually gets bumped up in the A range. For Jaylon Johnson, they're not going to trade him. I don't think. It really doesn't feel like it. The good news here is Jaylon Johnson was arguably the best corner in football last year, right there with L'Jarius Sneed. They don't let him hit free agency. They possibly get their good corner back here. They probably do, obviously, because he's on the tag. Again, unless they trade him. And they can. And the other good news is the Bears do have a lot of cap space, so it's not like it hurts them completely or hurts them a ton, but it does take a good chunk off, from them. But my issue here, and I still kept him in the B range because he's a really good player. I rated him as a top corner in football this past year. Doesn't mean he's going to be every year. It feels like it changes by year for corners. But, the Bears will either be stuck on the tag at $19.8 million, and it's just too much for a corner on 1 year with a cap. Like if he got extended for like 4 years and the average salary was 19.8, I'd still say too much. But it's not going to be a 19.8 cap hit every year. It's going to be smaller cap hits probably the first 2 years, and they structure it where it's probably larger the next 2 years of the last year, but you can get out of that deal if at that time you feel it's too. That's the positive about doing a long-term deal. So that's the difference with the franchise tag. So they're either stuck on that $19.8 million franchise tag, and they've been working on a long-term deal with Jaylon Johnson for a long time, it feels like, and they just cannot agree. He came up with it talks to the trade deadline because of it, but we want to have this guy. He's really good. That's what they're saying, and they're trying to work out a deal. They still can't work out a deal. So it's obvious to me he's asking for something that I just definitely would not pay for corners. So I guess we'll monitor that situation. They could get an extension. It's another one to look for with the extension to get done. But and then Ryan Poles said like a week ago, the Bears GM, that they really want to avoid the franchise tag. There's a reason for that. Paying 19, and Ryan Poles coming from Kansas City, so kind of having that same philosophy. So in the Chiefs, that's the difference. Same takes with the corners, but the Chiefs aren't gonna keep him on the 19, and the Bears may not either. They might extend him, but it's been a struggle. Like if they just started extension talks, then it'd be probably a different, B plus. But it's a struggle. They might be asking too much. They might be stuck on the franchise tag. We will see. The Chiefs have a plan. They're probably going to trade Sneed, so that's kind of the difference there. Just too much money dished out to corners. Very good corners. It's just. I'd rather pay a guy the next tier like 12, 13 million because they're not that far off, and a lot of it has to do with coaching and calling coverages and getting guys prepared in the film room. So very good corner though, but tricky situation for the Bears. They got to get him off even though they have a lot of money. Got to get him off that $19.8 million. You got to extend him, and I would hope the per year is less than 19.8, maybe max value, but. We'll see. I know the cap increased, but it's just too much for corners. Like looking at teams that won championships, really how the Chiefs do it, I think is the way to do it. It's kind of what I've always believed, and the Chiefs kind of proved that take correctly. Got to draft them. Got to pick them right, really. Josh Allen's going to get an A. Or the Jags are going to get an A for franchise tagging Josh Allen, and they're working towards an extension. Again, the guys on this list, a lot of them could get extended. Most of them could get extended. But if I had to say who's the most likely to get extended quickly, it'd probably be Michael Pittman and Josh Allen. It's my guess, my take. But let's go down the list here. Jaguars are clearing a lot of space. They have a lot of money, even with this tag. I mean, $24 million is a decent hit. But they've cleared a lot of space, especially today with a couple cuts. So they can afford it. It hurts a little bit, $24 million. Josh Allen's a great player. Don't want him to hit free agency. He's most definitely worth the $24 million because he's a premier pass rusher. It's a premier position, cap increased. Very important position that you do pay money. That I do pay money. I pay quarterbacks. I pay tackles. Now you pay receivers unless you look at the draft class where you sit in the draft. You kind of got to project a little bit there. And I pay pass rushers, interior defensive linemen. That doesn't mean don't pay shit to the other guys. It just be careful. Be careful. Smart. Be smart about it. But so everything points towards this being smart, being good. I don't really see any flaws to this. I guess it's better if they extend him rather than keeping him on the tag. But I think they'll extend him. We'll see what happens there. Next, Antoine Winfield Jr. We'll give it a B plus to the Bucks, $17.1 million. A little tricky situation for the Bucks because I'd imagine Winfield's asking for more than that, which is a lot for a safety. But the market for safety is a little interesting because the guys at the top, they're getting an absurd amount of money, and then there's a huge drop off for other top tier guys that are more so the top tier guys now. Jesse Bates is one example. He was probably seeking that best, highest paid or second or third highest paid, but he ended up kind of getting that tier right under it, which is so I think a lot of with the safeties, I think GMs are kind of disregarding those top guys, and one of them just got cut today, Jamal Adams. See how that worked out, but it just overpays in those categories, even though they're for really good players. So they kind of go to that next tier, which is around the 17 million range. But because the cap increased, because Winfield believes he's a top safety, he should believe he's a top safety in football, he wants to get paid as such. That makes sense from Winfield. It's just too much to pay. It's just what I would not pay, even though I love Winfield Jr. His dad is arguably my favorite player of all time. Playing corner, his toughness, being a Vikings fan. So I've always, I'm always going to root for Junior here. And I think he's worthy of that money at the top, and he should be asking for it. It's just not something I would pay. So placing him on the tag and avoiding paying $19 million per year, maybe seems like a win. And it is. It's kind of a win. That's why we're up at the B+. And he's worth it. Winfield's worth the $17.1 million, and the Bucs have a lot of spending money. So these are good things. Maybe that is kind of pushing it to an A range, but maybe A-. But then again, $17.1 million cap hit in 1 year for safety is a bit. You have to pay other players. You just paid Mike Evans. They still have a decent amount of space. You have to pay Baker Mayfield. You have to find a way for that to work. You have a lot of free agents at linebacker, other positions. You want to get better on top of it. So they can still do those things, but it makes their pockets a little I guess a little emptier, I suppose, is the best way to put it. So I give it a B+ though, because it's actually probably cheaper than what it would be per year, kind of guessing. You keep him around, really good player. He's worth that amount of money. There's some small negatives in there that kind of pushes it to a B+. So you kind of see my system. Start him at an A. Let's add negatives. If the negatives, how many negatives, keep pushing them down a little bit. So that's why I think these grades are pretty firm. I don't know, everyone has their different opinion, obviously, but they're pretty firm for me. And then we have a transition tag, which I talked about. There's two safeties could get the transition tag. We've talked about that multiple times. Kyle Duggar from the Patriots and Xavier McKinney from the Giants. I said who was more likely to get the transition tag, and if there was one that was going to get it and who was not, I was saying McKinney was probably going to get it. Duggar was probably not, but I was kind of both on the fence, so it ended up being the opposite. I think the Giants discussed the idea with McKinney, didn't end up happening. So he'll hit free agency. I mean, technically, Duggar, other teams could offer him, it's a transition tag too. I mean, you can offer him, Patriots can match. The difference between the transition tag, we explained it on Twitter. So if you're not following us on Twitter, you're missing out on a ton. Regular tag, transition tag. Regular tag pays more. Why does it pay more? Well, because, if those players are signed by another team, well, first the other team could give them an offer. Team has a chance to match. If the team doesn't match, that team takes them, and then the original team gets 2 first-round picks. So a little security there. A little security and potential of, if the guy is worth 2 first-round picks, potential of getting 2 first-round picks, or you can tag and trade too. But transition tag, a lot of the same things, but it's cheaper. Teams could offer, Patriots can match. If they don't match, team just gets them. No compensation at all. So that's kind of the difference. So you could say, why didn't the Patriots put the regular tag on him? Well, because it was $17.1 million. I'm a big Kyle Duggar guy, huge Kyle Duggar guy, but I love his upside, his instincts, his versatility, his ability, around the box. But it's a little too much. I think a lot, and nobody was going to give up 2 firsts, so there was no threat of a team. You paid that extra few million to, just in case a team gives up 2 firsts. That wasn't going to happen, So smart to do the $13.8 million. A team could offer more than that. The Patriots go, if it's a little bit more, maybe we match that. Maybe too much, you let them walk. So they have that opportunity there. But I give it an A. I think it's a really good safety that we know fits the Patriots. The Patriots defense, even though Bill Belichick's gone, it doesn't change. It doesn't change anything. It's going to fit that Mayo defense for sure. Really good player. I think his best football is ahead of him. I think 13.8 with the salary cap increase and where the league's heading, like using more versatile, unique type safeties. Like he really fits. He really fits it. I think he's definitely worth 13.8. We'll see if anybody matches, but this over just having him be a free agent, which technically, maybe he is, teams could sign him, but I think it's a solid move here. So I give it an A. It makes sense to me. So there you have it. My franchise tag grades, which we do every single year. We'll do the same thing for every signing in free agency. So if you're new, if you've already been with us, you know what it's madness. But signings happen on, it's next Monday. I'm tweeting about them, giving my takes, and about like 10 or so happen. I jump on here and I do these grades, and then we go back to the board, back to Twitter. Signings happen, reporting them, back to making another video, like 2 to 3 videos on day 1, 2 videos on day 2, then 2 videos the next day. It's a lot of fun. So, and we'll have a spreadsheet for you guys, keep track of all that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got our predictions to get to. So we predict quite a few of those. So I'm excited about that. Have the draft coverage along the way. A lot of cuts still getting going on here. We got you guys covered, not just on here, but on our Twitter, instantly there. Links pinned in the comments for social media and our sponsors, GLD Shop, Liquid IV, code GOAT. Help us get to 100K. We are getting there. Appreciate you guys' support so much. I can't believe we're getting there. It's been a journey, and there's a lot more to come here. So it's gonna do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.